So, in the as the marble halls of the Chirichan Palace echo with the diplomatic hush of delayed voices and sharpened agenda, we're suspended, not quite at peace, not quite at war. It's a Monday, June the 2nd, and the negotiators have arrived in Istanbul. I'm informed Ukraine's delegation, led once more by the defense minister Rustem Umerov, is in Istanbul. Russia's envoy Vladimir Medinsky has already been there since Sunday, waiting with his memorandum still intact, still unrevealed, still teased. This is a matter of ceremony there in Istanbul, but no illusion. The talk's already running late. Time is not the only thing being squandered. And just hours before these men boarded their flights, Ukrainian drones tore through Russian airspace in Operation Spiderweb, a stunningly precise assault on strategic bombers, a move as audacious as it was symbolic. Simultaneously, Russia's nightly bombardments of Ukrainian civilian areas continued with cold brutality, getting worse each night. One attack was legitimate defense against an aggressor, the other the targeting of civilians, a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. Be in no doubt. And yet here they are shaking hands over coffee in Ottoman splendor while the smoke of Sumy and Kharkiv still rises. This is diplomacy under duress, performance under pressure, negotiation in the middle of noise. And far away in Glasgow, Sir Keir Starmer stood with diplomats, not with diplomats, but with generals, actually, and not offering compromise, but preparing for confrontation. His words today were steel-clad. We're moving to war-fighting readiness as the central purpose of our armed forces. Gone is the genteel language of post-war optimism. Starmer's Britain is arming not for adventurism but for deterrence. He spoke of 6 new munitions factories, a £5 billion sovereign nuclear warhead programme with focus in Barrow-on-Furness and Derby. Shipyards both, in effect, and a submarine fleet swelling to 12 conventionally armed nuclear-powered boats. 30,000 skilled jobs across the country, 14,000 graduate roles, a rearmament programme on a scale not seen since the Thatcher-era Trident renewal. This is not just a military pivot, it's a political signal, and Britain under Labour intends to speak language Putin understands, the language of power. Yet one must ask, can this resolve be sustained? For all the declarations, Defence Secretary John Healey could not guarantee the Treasury will back the ambition to reach 3% of GDP on defence by 2034, and even some within Labour, let alone the Conservatives and Lib Dems, are privately questioning whether this strategic defence review is commitment or choreography. What happens, one wonders, when the spending review bites or when diplomatic winds change? And for now, the government insists these submarines, part of the AUKUS Pact, will enter service in the late 2030s, replacing the Astute class fleet and augmenting Britain's underwater deterrence. Well, that's quite a long time off, given the sabre rattling in the East. Let's be as vague as that. But the 2034 timeline feels closer, perhaps, than it might otherwise have felt if these things move ahead. But the urgency, nevertheless, must be felt from Sumy and Kharkiv. And meanwhile, in Istanbul, the task ahead is to merge 2 memoranda. Ukraine's already submitted and Russia's not yet revealed. Ooh, what am I hiding, says Russia. Not very much if Putin is genuinely in a Smeg fridge, because we all know it, along with the Smedley HP beans, frozen but still present. He's probably sitting on them. Ooh, wow, yes. Kiev's document calls for a 30-day ceasefire, return of abducted children, and most notably a Zelensky-Putin meeting. But Russia, as ever, is oblique. We don't know what Medinsky will present. Perhaps he, like his master in Moscow, still dreams of the conquest of Sumy and Kharkiv, the extinguishing of Ukraine's sovereignty in the east. It was only 2 weeks ago that the first round of talks yielded a major prisoner exchange, 1,000 lives for 1,000 lives, a human dividend of dialogue, but no ceasefire, no roadmap. Is today different? or simply another act in a performance played for Western consumption. As Britain rearms and Ukraine resists, diplomacy falters under the weight of artillery. Chirichan, like Versailles before it, may be remembered as either a false peace or the beginning of a better reckoning. Sakir's doctrine, peace through readiness, echoes Reagan but must be judged on British terms. The strategic review is an investment in deterrence, yes, but also in credibility. And if war is indeed on the horizon, as Starmer suggests, then let us hope that we are arming not for conflict, but to forestall conflict, that the submarines will remain beneath the waves, silent and unused, that the talks today, however belated, however flawed, might yet yield enough progress to let our children count down to peace, not war. And let's hope that the submarines are there to protect our underwater cables. For now, the world watches Chirichan and the clock ticks on. This was a palace constructed by Sultan Abdulaziz, and at one point in the early part of the 20th century, it doubled as the imperial parliament. And then suddenly there was a fire and the entire thing burnt to the ground. It was reopened in the early 1990s and has since become one of the most expensive hotels in the area on the Bosphorus, rather beautiful. And so literally standing between Europe and Asia. As I make this, it's just past 12, and therefore in Istanbul time it's 2 o'clock. So it's an hour late, and nothing's happened. Nothing's got started. It's not. It doesn't augur well, does it? Really?